Start the recording. And once again, we are on chapter 19, the attainment of peace, in our Course in Miracles study group today. We're going to be reading Healing and Faith. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen, and after the first section, we'll pause and you can all unmute after that and we can discuss and see if we can have some great conversations. So we'll go ahead and start sharing. All right. Trying to close my thumbnail down and it's, there we go. Okay. A Course in Miracles, chapter 19, the attainment of peace. Close off some of these other things. We said before that when a situation has been dedicated wholly to truth, peace is inevitable. Its attainment is the criterion by which the wholeness of the dedication can be safely assumed. Yet we also said that peace without faith will never be attained. For what is dedicated to truth as its only goal is brought to truth by faith. This faith encompasses everyone involved, for only thus the situation is perceived as meaningful and as whole. And everyone must be involved in it, or else your faith is limited and your dedication incomplete. Every situation properly perceived becomes an opportunity to heal the Son of God, and he is healed because you offered faith to him, giving him to the Holy Spirit and releasing him from every demand your ego would make of him. Thus do you see him free, and in this vision does the Holy Spirit share. And since he shares it, he has given it, and so he heals through you. It is this joining him in a united purpose that makes this purpose real, because you make it whole. And this is healing. The body is healed because you came without it and joined the mind in which all healing rests. The body cannot heal because it cannot make itself sick. It needs no healing. Its health or sickness depends entirely on how the mind perceives it and the purpose that the mind would use it for. It is obvious that a segment of the mind can see itself as separated from the universal purpose. When this occurs, the body becomes its weapon used against this purpose to demonstrate the fact that separation has occurred. The body thus becomes the instrument of illusion, acting accordingly, seeing what is not there, hearing what truth has never said, and behaving insanely, being imprisoned by insanity. Do not overlook our earlier statement that faithlessness leads straight to illusions. For faithlessness is the perception of a brother as a body, and the body cannot be used for purposes of union. If then you see your brother as a body, you have established a condition in which uniting with him becomes impossible. Your faithlessness to him has separated you from him and kept you both apart from being healed. Your faithlessness has thus opposed the Holy Spirit's purpose and brought illusions centered on the body to stand between you. And the body will seem to be sick, for you have made of it an enemy of healing and the opposite of truth. It cannot be difficult to realize that faith must be the opposite of faithlessness. Yet the difference in how they operate is less apparent, though it follows directly from the fundamental difference in what they are. Faithlessness would always limit and attack. Faith would remove all limitations and make whole. Faithlessness would destroy and separate. Faith would unite and heal. Faithlessness would interpose illusions between the Son of God and his Creator. Faith would remove all obstacles that seem to rise between them. Faithlessness is wholly dedicated to illusions. faith wholly to truth. Partial dedication is impossible. Truth is the absence of illusion. Illusion, the absence of truth. Both cannot be together, nor perceived in the same place. To dedicate yourself to both is to set up a goal forever impossible to attain, for part of it is sought through the body, thought of as a means for seeking out reality through attack. The other part would heal, and therefore calls upon the mind and not the body. The inevitable compromise is the belief that the body must be healed and not the mind. For this divided goal has given both an equal reality, which could be possible only if the mind is limited to the body and divided into little parts of seeming wholeness, but without connection. This will not harm the body, but it will keep the delusional thought system in the mind. Here then is healing needed. And it is here that healing is. For God gave healing not apart from sickness, nor established remedy where sickness cannot be. They are together. And when they are seen together, all attempts to keep both truth and illusion in the mind, where both must be, are recognized as dedicated to illusion and given up when brought to truth and seen as totally unreconcilable with truth in any respect or in any way. Truth and illusion have no connection. This will remain forever true, however much you seek to connect them. But illusions are always connected, as is truth. Each is united, a complete thought system, but totally disconnected from each other. And to perceive this is to recognize where separation is and where it must be healed. The result of an idea is never separate from its source. The idea of separation produced the body and remains connected to it, making it sick because of the mind's identification with it. You think you're protecting the body by hiding this connection, for this concealment seems to keep your identification safe from the attack of truth. If you but understood how much this strange concealment has hurt your mind and how confused your own identification has become because of it, you do not see how great the devastation wrought by your faithlessness. For faithlessness is an attack that seems to be justified by its results. For by withholding faith, you see what is unworthy of it and cannot look beyond the barrier to what is joined with you. To have faith is to heal. It is the sign that you have accepted the at-one-ment for yourself and would therefore share it. By faith, you offer the gift of freedom from the past, which you received. You do not use anything your brother has done before to condemn him now. You freely choose to overlook his errors, looking past all barriers between yourself and him, and seeing them as one. And in that one, you see your faith is fully justified. There is no justification for faithlessness, but faith is always justified. Faith is the opposite of fear, as much a part of love as fear is of attack. Faith is the acknowledgement of union. It is the gracious acknowledgement of everyone as a son of your most loving Father, loved by him like you, and therefore loved by you as yourself. It is his love that joins you and your brother, and for his love, you would keep no one separate from yours. Each one appears just as he is perceived in the holy instant, unified in your purpose to be released from guilt. You see the Christ in him, and he is healed because you look on what makes faith forever justified in everyone. Faith is the gift of God through him whom God has given you. Faithlessness looks upon the Son of God and judges him unworthy of forgiveness. But through the eyes of faith, the Son of God is seen already forgiven, free of all guilt he laid upon himself. Faith sees him only now because it looks not to the past to judge him, but would see in him only what it would see in you. It sees not through the body's eyes, nor looks to bodies for its justification. It is the messenger of the new perception, sent forth to gather witnesses unto its coming and to return their messages to you. Faith is as easily exchanged for knowledge as is the real world. For faith arises from the Holy Spirit's perception and is the sign you share it with him. Faith is a gift you offer to the Son of God through him, and wholly acceptable to his Father as to him, and therefore offered you. Your holy relationship with its new purpose offers you faith to give unto your brother. Your faithlessness has driven you and him apart, and so you do not recognize salvation in him. Yet faith unites you in the holiness you see, not through the body's eyes, but in the sight of him who joined you, and in whom you are united. Grace is not given to a body, but to a mind, and the mind that receives it looks instantly beyond the body and sees the holy place where it was healed. There is the altar where the grace was given, in which it stands. Do you then offer grace and blessing to your brother? For you stand at the same altar where grace was laid for both of you. And be you healed by grace together, that you may heal through faith. In the holy instant, you and your brother stand before the altar God has raised unto himself, and both of you. Lay faithlessness aside and come to it together. There will you see the miracle of your relationship as it was made again through faith. And there it is that you will realize that there is nothing faith cannot forgive. No error interferes with its calm sight, which brings the miracle of healing with equal ease to all of them. For what the messengers of love are sent to do, they do, returning the glad tidings that it was done to you and your brother who stand together before the altar from which they were sent forth. As faithlessness will keep your little kingdoms barren and separate, so will faith help the Holy Spirit prepare the ground for the most holy garden that he would make of it. For faith brings peace, and so it calls on truth to enter and make lovely what has already been prepared for loveliness. Truth follows faith and peace, completing the process of making lovely that they begin. For faith is still a learning goal, no longer needed when the lesson has been learned, yet truth will stay forever. Let then your dedication to be to the eternal, and learn how not to interfere with it and make it slave to time. For what you think you do to the eternal, you do to you. Whom God created as his son is slave to nothing, being Lord of all, along with his creator. You can enslave a body, but an idea is free, incapable of being kept in prison or limited in any way, except by the mind that thought it, for it remains joined to its source, which is its jailer or its liberator, according to which it chooses as its purpose for itself. Ooh, there's a lot in there. Feel free to unmute and we can talk about it. It's interesting, we were talking earlier, just about people who have differences of opinions and what we think about them and how we might see them as having a big ego. And, and I do that too, right? And those are the moments when you need to stop yourself and say, okay, it's my job to have faith in my brother and see him as one with me and see the Christ in him. And in that is where the healing happens, right? Otherwise, we just keep separating ourselves.
So do you say you give faith to others? You extend it to others? Is that what you say?
I think it's a matter of, instead of judging them, having faith that they are your salvation, and having faith that that you can see the Christ in them instead of seeing their big ego, instead of judging them as
How do you
being,
express that?
well, I think you have to stop, right? And then you have to align your thoughts with the Holy Spirit, align your thoughts with love. And then in that moment, see your oneness with that person, right? Really experience that oneness that you have with them. And I think for me, I did it in a dream. So I actually was able to practice it. And even though it was a dream, and this is a dream, it really helped me to do that, because I know I've said this over and over again, but it was like that German woman in my dream that was yelling at me. And I remember looking at her, she was like sitting across the table with me, and I looked at her and I go, but you and I are one. But in my dream, we were having an argument, or she was arguing with me. I said, but you and I are one. I said, we're one. And I didn't really understand what that meant until then I realized I'm dreaming. And I looked at her and I go, actually, you're me, because I'm making you up right now in my mind. And you're just a projection of my mind. I said, so we really are one. And when I had that realization in my dream, she stopped arguing, she smiled, and she disintegrated. It was like the most hysterical dream, but it was like one of those like aha moments where I'm like, wow, just like I'm making everybody up in my dream when I'm sleeping, I'm also making up everybody when I'm awake. And if I can,
So had you been practicing not judging or not projecting? You had,
yes,
yes.
yeah, and it's practice, right? It's just like doing the workbook lessons, practicing 365 lessons.
According to what we just read, it's an attack to be that judgmental.
Right.
You're actually attacking that person in your mind.
Right.
Doing that.
When you're just attacking yourself, but you don't see that because you see yourself as a body. So
well, when you take that further, think about it, right? The quote that says, all attack is a call for love.
Right.
yeah,
So you're actually calling out for love as well.
So the key is to not see that person as a body, to see that person as an idea and a projection of the idea.
So as an idea of faith.
Right.
Oh, if you go to paragraph 9, sentence 4 and 5, I mean, I brought this up before, but clearly I struggle with this. You do not use anything your brother has done before to condemn him now. Freely choose to overlook his errors, looking past all barriers between yourself and him, and seeing them as one.
good.
God, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Just don't know how I don't know what it is. I can look at that and say that makes perfect sense. You don't want to take poison and think somebody else is going to get sick from it. That just serves no purpose for me to hold on to that. But I don't know what it is, other than just as simple as letting it, giving it to the Holy Spirit and letting it go. However, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that struggles with complete and utter forgiveness for, we've all had some crappy stuff, I'm sure, that has happened to us. And that one I struggle with. That is lots and lots and lots of practice. And it seems ridiculous when I practice it. So again, I have a judgment about what I'm thinking about it already, because it's, in a weird way, and I've said this before too, by forgiving it all, in my brain, it gives the appearances of condoning the behavior. And it's just a skewed way of looking at it. And I get it. But
Like if you think about it, like, so who are you to condone it or not to condone another person's behavior? Right?
Yeah.
What if you just looked at the
I'm
last?
God. What are you talking about? I'm God. I can do whatever I want.
Alicia, did you ever look at just the last moment of it, where you decide that there's nothing to judge? Did you ever just do that?
I haven't tried that.
If you looked at the last moment of it, then you might see the logic that gets you to the place where you don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's still, for me, it's just a mind game. Like, and my mind won't let it go. Or maybe my mind can.
Isn't it unraveling
the
backwards
letting
though?
it
The other
go,
way you're doing
but
it,
it's the heart. Pardon me?
isn't it unraveling backwards the way you're doing it though? Isn't it? Isn't it
That puts the hell
uncomfortable?
out of me.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got a little story for you. This is a really good example of, and Alicia, you've been through this with your house remodeling guy, and so we had a guy come to do our tub and tile in one of our bathrooms, and did a great job on regrouting the tile. A few little spots missed, but just horrible on the tub. And you know, I really didn't see it. We didn't have the right kind of light to shine a certain direction to see it. So it was like he had gone, and my wife and I are looking at this, we're going to go, oh my God. And we're just anguishing over this. And I said, well, being the retired architect, I've got to photograph all this stuff that's happened. And so it's evidence, da 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 da. And then, I mean, we spent most of a 2-mile walk one night talking about how we were going to have him do this and this, but we weren't going to have him do anything more because in our minds we couldn't trust him. Anyway, after over a week, he shows up last night with this part that he had bought to fix the faucet in that tub. And then I had the light on in there in a certain way, and he went, oh, wow. Oh, I didn't see. Look at this. Yeah, and look down here and look over. Well, I got to completely sand this down and do everything, and no talk of any struggle or extra money or anything. And we were gonna do something. I was gonna send an email documenting all this stuff, and this is what we needed to do, and it would have been hours of work to do that. So we did nothing, let him see it, and he's a really good guy, very easy to talk with. He's not, you could have somebody difficult too. They were like, yeah, it's the best I could do. But anyway, the point is, the thing, my wife and I were like, after he left, we're like, wow, we didn't have to say one thing. He just walked in and saw it and admitted to it fully. And maybe that doesn't happen all the time, but I was just amazed that it was the opposite scenario that I thought was going to happen. So anyway, whatever.
It's a good share, I need do nothing,
Yeah. It's when we judge somebody, we lock them in a little cage. You are this way. And then the way we talk to them reinforces that. So they go, oh, okay, well, that's what you think of me. So I'm this little incompetent, whatever, or, whatever that is. And so we define people instead of being quiet and just being there. That's
in essence, you just thinking all those thoughts put you in that cage, and you were the one that was imprisoned, and he was free.
Absolutely.
Right, because he didn't know, so he
know.
didn't think anything, and you and your wife had been discussing it, so you had put yourselves in this jail with your you were the jailer imprisoned with your.
Yeah, and we're talking about
and
various.
you created a much bigger story. You spent 2 hours
It was horrible.
spinning an additional story. After 2 hours, you spun this whole additional story to add on to the original thing of how you can't trust him anymore, and you really wouldn't recommend him, and this whole thing of how he, hurt you, and and all this stuff that we adding on and adding on and adding on. It would be wonderful if we could do this with God and with spirit, to have this little spark of what we consider truth or fact, and then add on to that and then live it. Instead, we kind of say, oh, that's a lot of work. but we do it very
Oh.
spontaneously when it comes to the world that we consider real.
Yeah, but Mary, what you're saying is, to really do it the right way, or let's say to do nothing, is is the easiest way by far. I mean, we put ourselves through a hell.
Mhm.
So,
But
is that what
in
you were
essence,
saying?
because you put yourself in hell, right? You're able to see it even more clearly.
Yeah,
Because without that experience, you probably wouldn't really have thought much of it.
yeah,
Right?
I would now. Yeah,
Yeah, but because you had put yourself in that place of hell, it says even paragraph 2, every situation properly perceived becomes an opportunity to heal the Son of God.
yeah,
And just like in
Yeah.
paragraph 15, as faithlessness will keep your little kingdom barren and separate, so will faith help the Holy Spirit prepare the ground for the most holy garden that he would make of it. For faith brings peace, and so it calls on truth to enter to make lovely what has already been prepared for loveliness.
yeah. It's already there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to see. So then on top of all this, the guy is telling us, and my daughter and her husband have already had him do work on their house, and my brother-in-law and his wife. And so there was this whole history with this fellow. So that's why the trust was there. But then at the end, he's telling me and Denise about his wife just had this incident with her eye, where her eye filled up with blood. She had to go to the same eye doctor I go to, and now they've made all these little pinholes around the iris or something to let the pressure out. And I'm going, oh my God, it was like, not only did I make this assumption about this guy that he wasn't caring enough, but now he's completely suffering with his wife, but took the time to run over specially as soon as this part came in to get it installed so we could have our shower back. So I'm like, "Ew." Anyway,
Life's lessons, right?
yeah.
That's right.
In paragraph 10, you see the Christ in him and he is healed because you look on him, on what makes faith forever justified for everyone in everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And not
Yeah.
feeling small because you see it in yourself
Yeah,
too. You see
yeah,
Christ.
I made myself small. You're right, Carol.
Right.
I
Mhm.
made it into this, what I used to do as an architect when I was the city here, and was like, was in charge of getting the plans done. I wrote the specifications. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I'm the owner and I'm the architect. So it was like, the great Oz, but I still had the curtain there. I just didn't see it.
That's a great analogy.
Mhm.
Yeah, anyway, so that is a kind of a thing that I have to set that cloak aside and go, well, I'm not that anymore. That could be actually, it can be an asset, but it can be in this case, it was a liability that could have really pissed him off. He could have just said, well, you are obviously not worth working for. I'm sorry. I'll only charge you for the tile work. Goodbye. That's how it could have ended had I kept the position that I thought I needed to take. Oh God.
And
Anyway,
then when you take it one step further and you realize he was the gift to bring you to the bridge, right?
yeah, he really,
And when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, it doesn't matter what hat we wear in this world of this illusory world, right? Doesn't really matter what hat we wear, because none of it really matters. The only thing that matters is that we learn how to have faith in our brother and to see him complete and whole and healed. And then we release ourselves.
Yeah, and then that frees us up then to
That
where
frees
we
us
can,
and allows us to have this situation where we can be in that kingdom of heaven.
yeah,
And only then, right? Only when we're able to see our brother, see the Christ in our brothers, all of them, not just a few that are easy.
yeah. Ooh, what was this? Oh,
All right, any other
Lori, that's a-
conversations or anything else that we want to talk about before we read the next section? All right, let's continue. I think the next section is going to be equally sin versus error. All right. It is essential that error be not confused with sin, and it is this distinction that makes salvation possible. For error can be corrected and the wrong made right. But sin, were it possible, would be irreversible. The belief in sin is necessarily based on the firm conviction that minds, not bodies, can attack. And thus the mind is guilty and will forever so remain unless a mind, not part of it, can give it absolution. Sin calls for punishment as error for correction. And the belief that punishment is correction is clearly insane. Sin is not an error, for sin entails an arrogance, which the idea of error lacks. To sin would be to violate reality and to succeed. Sin is the proclamation that attack is real and guilt is justified. It assumes the Son of God is guilty and has thus succeeded in losing his innocence and making himself what God created not. Thus is creation seen as not eternal and the will of God open to opposition and defeat. Sin is the grand illusion underlying all the ego's grandiosity. For by it, God himself is changed and rendered incomplete. The Son of God can be mistaken. He can deceive himself. He can even turn the power of his mind against himself. But he cannot sin. There's nothing he can do that would really change his reality in any way or make him really guilty. That is what sin would do, for such is its purpose. Yet for all the wild insanity inherent in the whole idea of sin, it is impossible. For the wages of sin is death. And how can the immortal die? A major tenet in the ego's insane religion is that sin is not error, but truth. And it is innocence that would deceive. Purity is seen as arrogance, and the acceptance of the self as sinful is perceived as holiness. And it is this doctrine that replaces the reality of the Son of God as his Father created him and willed that he be forever. Is this humility? Or is it rather an attempt to wrest creation away from truth and keep it separate? Any attempt to reinterpret sin as error is always indefensible to the ego. The idea of sin is wholly sacrosanct to its thought system and quite unapproachable, except with reverence and awe. It is the most holy concept in the ego system, lovely and powerful, wholly true, and necessarily protected with every defense at its disposal. For here lies its best defense, which all the others serve. Here is its armor, its protection, and the fundamental purpose of the special relationship in its interpretation. It can indeed be said the ego made this world on sin. Only in such a world could everything be upside down. This is the strange illusion that makes the clouds of guilt seem heavy and unpenetrable. The solidness that this world's foundation seems to have is found in this. For sin has changed creation from an idea of God to an ideal the ego wants, a world it rules, made up of bodies, mindless and capable of complete corruption and decay. If this is a mistake, it can be undone easily by truth. Any mistake can be corrected if truth be left to judge it. But if the mistake is given the status of truth, to what can it be brought? The holiness of sin is kept in place by just this strange device. As truth, it is inviolate, and everything is brought to it for judgment. As a mistake, it must be brought to truth. It is impossible to have faith in sin, for sin is faithlessness. Yet, it is possible to have faith that a mistake can be corrected. There's no stone in all the ego's embattled citadel that is more heavily defended than the idea that sin is real, the natural expression of what the Son of God has made himself to be and what he is. To the ego, this is no mistake, for this is its reality. This is the truth from which escape will always be impossible. This is his past, his present, and his future, for he has somehow managed to corrupt his father and change his mind completely. Mourn then the death of God, whom sin has killed. And this would be the ego's wish, which in its madness, it believes it has accomplished. Would you not rather that all this be nothing more than a mistake, entirely correctable, and so easily escaped from that its whole correction is like walking through a mist into the sun? For that is all it is. Perhaps you would be tempted to agree with the ego that it is far better to be sinful than mistaken. Yet think you carefully before you allow yourself to make this choice. Approach it not lightly, for it is the choice of hell or heaven. Ooh, that was good, Alicia. Did you get that?
I certainly did.
Ah,
That was
that was good.
perfect.
that
was
really
perfect.
good.
Yep.
I love that. We have these conversations and then the very next thing we read, it's like, boom.
100% of the time.
Yep. Yep. Do you want to talk to that?
Me?
Yeah.
I just kind of blew my mind. There was so much in there. There's so much. Any attempt to reinterpret sin as there is always indefensible to the ego. My mind just goes to the place where I'm just so ego driven with regard to this one situation that has been emblazoned in my mind, my experience, my everything. Now, it started like 13 years ago, and then I had an incident about 2.5 years ago that just was like mind blowing. And so, but I'm putting so much weight on those experiences. Like I get it. And it still stirs up those feelings. And it just makes me recognize fully how ego driven I have always been, how I continue to be, and how, in those circumstances, it doesn't really, it doesn't serve me. And it's not, and it's funny. It's like, Tim's experience was like embellishing in his head a whole certain, I'm not talking about embellishing anything. I'm going straight up with exactly what happened. So what is the seeming reality of what I experienced is it's big. So it's a matter of getting rid of the judgment about those experiences, the way it makes me feel. I just wish I had an on-off switch.
So here's what I'm reading, what I'm seeing when the section we just read.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a beginning would be, can you look at what has happened and realize that you're seeing it as a sin, what he did as a sin. And
Exactly.
Maybe now, based on what we just read it as, okay, what he did is a mistake.
Exactly. And that is helpful in that regard. And even though, I was never brought up with any religious indoctrination, that definitely did speak to me, the differentiation between the gravity of
Right.
a sin or a mistake. So yes, that was
Right.
really helpful.
Because a mistake can be corrected, but a sin is you're forever damned,
Exactly.
right? And it's keeping you from the kingdom of heaven. That's the problem, right? Because
Right.
you're kept in that place of hell as long as you are continuing to be the jailer. It keeps you in prison.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's something that I'm grappling with too, because, my daughter's getting married in December as well. So, it'll be a week in Jamaica with him there. So I keep coming back to, you need do nothing. You need to not do nothing, because my ego it says to me, maybe there should be some discussion or an offering of the olive branch or some discussion before we're thrown into the mix for this huge event. And then I just keep coming back to, you need do nothing, you need do nothing. So in that quiet space, if something else comes to me, then I can choose to act on it or not. But it's something I think that is in the forefront of things I'm thinking about in this upcoming year, because I really, really would love to have the grace to be able to get to that space where just unconditional love and forgiveness for these experiences that you had. And I'm just still, it's been a long time, and I'm still pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see it, and I don't necessarily like it, and I'm just trying to figure out what the hell to do with it.
How about the lessons? Are you doing the lessons right now?
I haven't done, I've been through the lessons like 3 times, and I currently am not doing them. No.
Yeah. Because that also helps you to not see others as a body. And that could be like just as simple as that, being able to see others as not a body, and to be able to see yourself as not a body, and therefore see others as not a body.
Not a
'Cause
body.
I think wanting to hold on to that body did this sinful thing to me, instead of that mind made a mistake.
It's a really good way to look at it. Yeah. I gotta write this stuff down. I gotta remember that one.
If you want a little help tool I came up with a few years ago, I just changed not a body to something I really like a lot, and that's it was a contraction of nutty buddy. So nutty body. God, you know what I'm doing.
Nutty body. That's funny. I love that.
Just something you can just come up real quick and.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. When I can remember.
That's
So what does it mean when it says this idea that any mistake can be corrected if truth be left to judge it?
right.
What I get from that.
So, I mean, can you ask
there-
yourself
there
what
is
it means
no-
and what does it
there is
mean
no
to you?
mistake. No matter what, even with that guy 5,000 miles to our east, 6,000, whatever he is. I mean, hey, it's playing out. It's playing out like it's playing out, and bodies are dying, but in truth, if everyone was Christ, they'd be like, okay, all right, next, another life, maybe I don't need another life,
See, that's the past. It isn't about forgiving the past. It's about now, in the present moment. Now is what it's about. It isn't about what Putin's doing yesterday or last week or even now, 6,000 miles away, which means it's a long ways away. It's in the past. So there's nothing happening. There's nothing happening now that has anything to do with the past.
And that's a good point, Eric, when you said, what does it mean that it'll be brought to truth? I think it goes, again, we forget to let go, let God, we forget lesson 365, this holy instant I give to you, be you in charge. Because when we try to fix it, we're already aligned with fear because we've already been triggered. And as soon as we're triggered, we can't get to that place of truth and love because we're aligned with fear. We have to let go, let God. And how do you do it? You got to get yourself to that place of surrender. I give this to God. I give this to the Holy Spirit. I allow my mind to be aligned with the Holy Spirit or with truth.
Yeah.
For me, it was easier because I was studying science first. So I discovered that all of time happens at one moment. And there's no difference between now and before. There's only a now, really.
Right.
So how do you have really only now? That means nothing moves, really. There's no distance between anything and any other thing. Everything is one thing. So it began to become sensible. And then I discovered non-duality, and I started kind of monkeying around with thinking about that. And then a lot of things came at the same time, including the Course in Miracles, which I came across it a long time ago, but never really took it very seriously. And suddenly it made sense to me, because suddenly it was saying the same thing. It just was so long. I thought to myself, I think the first time I read it through it, I thought to myself, like, I just read all the whole book, and I still don't understand a word of it because it's too much material.
Right.
So I gave up on it for like forever. But I remember some things. About special relationships, for example, I could see that. I could see that would make them special for love and special for hate. I could see that clearly. I couldn't do anything about it, but I could see it. Now I see about this truth. Let truth judge it.
Right.
Truth doesn't move. Truth doesn't see anything other than truth. So let truth judge it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the holy instant. That's the now. Right.
Yeah. And just to reinforce what I was talking about earlier, for me personally, this first part of paragraph 7, there's no stone in all the eagle's embattled citadel that's more heavily defended than the idea that sin is real. Natural
Right.
expression of what the
Oh,
Son of
yeah.
God has made himself to be and what he is. To the ego, this is no mistake.
So
Right.
when sin makes complexity real, because there cannot be any concentration of all time in that need to see that there's something more and something more and something more and something more to judge separately. It's judging it all separately, you'll never finish.
Right. Again, I would encourage everyone to do the lessons from the beginning to the end, and can just continue to do them, because you'll get more and more and more out of them. And it really is through doing the lessons and reading the text that A Course in Miracles will bring you to that path of the holy instant and that at one moment. They're definitely meant to be done together. So, all right, should we try one more? It's just a small section. I think we have time to read it.
Let's see, where are we?
Go ahead and jump into this next area. The unreality of sin. All right. The attraction of guilt is found in sin, not error. Sin will be repeated because of this attraction. Fear can become so acute that the sin is denied the acting out. But while the guilt remains attractive, the mind will suffer and not let go of the idea of sin. For guilt still calls to it, and the mind hears it and yearns for it, making itself a willing captive to its sick appeal. Sin is an idea of evil that cannot be corrected, and yet will be forever desirable. As an essential part of what the ego thinks you are, you will always want it. And only an avenger with a mind unlike your own could stamp it out through fear. The ego does not think it possible that love, not fear, is really called upon by sin and always answers. For the ego brings sin to fear, demanding punishment. Yet punishment is but another form of guilt's protection. For what is deserving punishment must have been really done. Punishment is always the great preserver of sin, treating it with respect and honoring its enormity. What must be punished must be true. And what is true must be eternal and will be repeated endlessly. For what you think is real, you want and will not let it go.
Right.
An error, on the other hand, is not attractive. What you see clearly as a mistake, you want corrected. Sometimes a sin can be repeated over and over with obviously distressing results, but without the loss of its appeal. And suddenly, you change its status from a sin to a mistake. Now you will not repeat it. You'll merely stop and let it go, unless the guilt remains. For then you will but change the form of sin, granting that it was an error, but keeping it uncorrectable. This is not really a change in your perception, for it is sin that calls for punishment, not error. The Holy Spirit cannot punish sin. Mistakes he recognizes and would correct them all as God entrusted him to do. But sin, he knows not, nor can he recognize mistakes that cannot be corrected. For a mistake that cannot be corrected is meaningless to him. Mistakes are for correction, and they call for nothing else. What calls for punishment must call for nothing. Every mistake must be a call for love. What then is sin? What could it be but a mistake you would keep hidden? A call for help that you would keep unheard and thus unanswered. In time, the Holy Spirit clearly sees the Son of God can make mistakes. On this, you share his vision. Yet you do not share his recognition of the difference between time and eternity. And when correction is completed, time is eternity. The Holy Spirit can teach you how to look on time differently and see beyond it, but not while you believe in sin. In error, yes, for this can be corrected by the mind, but sin is the belief that your perception is unchangeable and that the mind must accept as true what it is told through it. If it does not obey, the mind is judged insane. The only power that could change perception is thus kept impotent, held to the body by the fear of changed perception, which its teacher, who is one with it, would bring. When you are tempted to believe that sin is real, remember this: if sin is real, both God and you are not. If creation is extension, the Creator must have extended himself, and it is impossible that what is part of him is totally unlike the rest. If sin is real, God must be at war with himself. He must be split and torn between good and evil, partly sane and partially insane. For he must have created what wills to destroy him and has the power to do so. Is it not easier to believe that you have been mistaken than to believe this? While you believe that your reality or your brother's is bounded by a body, you will believe in sin. While you believe that bodies can unite, you will find guilt attractive and believe that sin is precious. For the belief in that bodies limit mind leads to a perception of the world in which the proof of separation seems to be everywhere, and God and his creation seem to be split apart and overthrown. For sin would prove what God created holy could not prevail against it, nor remain itself before the power of sin. Sin is perceived as mightier than God, before which God himself must bow and offer his creation to its conqueror. Is this humility or madness? If sin is real, it must forever be beyond the hope of healing, for there would be a power beyond God's, capable of making another will that could attack his will and overcome it, and give his Son a will apart from his and stronger. And each part of God's fragmented creation would have a different will opposed to his and in eternal opposition to him and to each other. Your holy relationship has as its purpose now the goal of proving this is impossible. Heaven has smiled upon it, and the belief in sin has been uprooted in its smile of love. You see it still, because you do not realize that its foundation has gone. Its source has been removed, and so it can be cherished but a little while before it vanishes. Only the habit of looking for it still remains. And yet you look with heaven's smile upon your lips and heaven's blessing on your sight. You will not see sin long. For in the new perception, the mind corrects it when it seems to be seen, and it becomes invisible. Errors are quickly recognized and quickly given to correction, to be healed, not hidden. You will be healed of sin and all its ravages the instant that you give it no power over your brother, and you will help him overcome mistakes by joyously releasing him from the belief in sin. In the holy instant, you will see the smile of heaven shining on both you and your brother, and you will shine upon him in glad acknowledgement of the grace that has been given you. For sin will not prevail against a union heaven has smiled upon. Your perception was healed in the holy instant heaven gave you. Forget what you have seen and raise your eyes in faith to what you now can see. The barriers to heaven will disappear before your holy sight. For you who were sightless have been given vision, and you can see. Look not for what has been removed, but for the glory that has been restored for you to see. Look upon your Redeemer and behold what he would show you in your brother. And let not sin arise again to blind your eyes, for sin would keep you separate from him. But your Redeemer would have you look upon your brother as yourself. Your relationship is now a temple of healing, a place where all the weary ones can come and rest. Here is the rest that waits for all after the journey, and it is brought nearer to all by your relationship. Dun, dun, dun. That's amazing, right? That your relationship has that much strength to heal so many, right? And it can be tough, right? Especially when we feel wounded by some of the things that have happened to us in our relationships. But when we can just see it as a mistake to be healed and really be able to come to it from that place of love and stop seeing ourselves as a body and stop seeing the people in our other relationships as a body and really understand that we're all minds and all minds are joined. Simple, but not always easy. Right? Practice, practice, practice.
And they're joined by something we cannot even see.
Right.
Well, because of the veil.
Well, and they're joined by something you don't need to see because we're not a body, right?
Right.
If you can just experience, I think it's an experiential thing, which is I think something that Eric had touched on earlier about all of these experiences that are brought by all of these different, religions and spiritual practices. It's really the experience and the knowing that we are all one and that, we are a mind and we're part of that one mind of source energy, God, whatever it is you want to call it. When you have those experiences, you can never see the body the same again.
Darn it, keep forgetting about that microphone button. You can kind of back up in your senses. You close your eyes and just allow yourself to feel your breathing, and you find the one place where all your senses seem to arise from that one place. So there's no screen yet, there's nothing to project yet, there's nothing in front of you, there's no place to go to, you simply rest in that place that there's nothing. Then you can find yourself more peacefully able to see that there's nothing to fight about because there's nothing there for you to judge against. If you didn't project anything, there's nothing to judge. So you can just rest there for a while, strengthening, realizing it's okay to take a break from worrying about this guy and that guy, whoever they are.
Eric, I think that's one thing we forget to do, right? We're so busy with the busyness. that distracts us from our truth. Anybody else have any other comments before we close? It's almost 1:30. Oh, I do want to mention something. I will be at my daughter's baby shower.
Oh,
So I will not be here Monday, this coming Monday, which is a week from today. And I will also not be here the Monday after because I will be in LA with my daughter.
oh,
So I apologize in advance for skipping 2 weeks for you guys. I'm sorry.
oh,
But it'd be a good time to maybe kind of get grounded in some of the lessons and do the lessons, and then we can talk about that when I come back. So the next time I will be back on the live Zooms will be April 25th, I think. Wait, let me just see.
That's right.
Oh, no. The next one will be May 2nd.
Oh,
May
that's
2nd.
18th and 25th, right?
So I will not be here on the 18th or the 25th.
okay.
But I will be back on the 2nd, and I will try to fix my email automation so that it doesn't send reminders. I still have to figure that out, but
Oh.
I'm going to try to send that to fix that automation. If anybody's good with stuff like that and want to help me out, that would be great. But otherwise, I'm sure I could figure it out.
Enjoy your trip.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here
Yeah.
today and participating. It's great to see you all. And
Safe travels and have fun.
thank you. So I won't see you guys again until
Yeah.
May.
Okay.
But
Enjoy.
Baby, the excitement
Yeah,
of
it's
new
gonna be
life.
great. Wow.
I know. So her due date is July 27th. So I'm excited about that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming.
Ciao,
All right, well,
everybody.
Thank you,
Enjoy.
everyone.
Bye,
We'll see you in
Mary.
a few weeks. All right, bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.